Doctor, look.
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Stand clear.
Hey everybody, welcome. It's another episode of Dr. Homebrew. It's the spooky October edition, and Halloween time is here. That's my favorite time of year because we get spooky crazy. Spooky with a beer. I don't know, not really.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
I was really hoping that you weren't going to go with like a beer pun, because I would have figured out how to kick you out of the chat room. I would have done it. I would have kicked you out.
Well, I would have been demoted to a nurse practitioner of Homebrew.
Yeah, I don't even know that. Maybe Candy Striper?
Yeah, LPN of Homebrew? I don't know.
No, I don't know. A volunteer at the front desk of Homebrew.
A vet tech of Homebrew.
Yeah, sure, you should do that too. With me, of course, is Brian and Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian.
Hi, and I'm Brian too.
Cooper, you are a little low. Could you possibly up your volume a little bit? If that's possible?
I'll give it a try.
All right.
Yeah.
You do that. Okay. You try. As my daughter would say, I'm going to just try.
I'm going to try.
Yeah, I'm going to try. I'm going to try. All right. We have Colin here as well, home brewer, and he's given us some beers. We're going to try those in a second. But before we get into the show, this is, of course, Dr. Homebrew's first show back on the airwaves. After the passing of Mike Tasty McDole. And we all wouldn't really feel right without saying something about the man. I don't want to get into it too much because that could just be it could be a whole podcast, for God's sakes. And I think we're going to do something on the Brewing Network side early November is what's happening. So maybe next week. I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to pay my respects to the guy. I've known Tasty since the early 2000s, and nice guy, good home brewer, of course, and kind of just unabashedly himself. And I think that's a big lesson for anybody to take away from someone with a life well lived is how to be comfortable in your own skin. At least that's what I'm trying to take from that too. And it's just, I don't know, man, it's sad and it's tragic. And there's definitely sort of a feeling at the Brewing Network of like not really being sure what to do right now.
There's also a reason he was on the BN, because he brewed fantastic beer.
Yeah.
Especially I loved a lot of his IPAs and the brown ale, of course, everybody knows. And he always shared his knowledge, and he had a lot of knowledge,
Right.
You could pick his brain, and he had the goods to back it up.
That's true. And, a lot of it was coming from talking to brewers on the show. And like he sort of knew about homebrewing in a way where he just knew how to ask the questions and retain that information, So don't be afraid also, man. I mean, Tasty sort of had a big set of balls on him when it came to like asking questions. Like he would just ask. He would just ask questions, right? He wasn't afraid of like not necessarily offending anybody, but just like being told no. He wasn't afraid of being told no.
Yeah.
And
he was just a very genuine, nice human being. And what you saw was what you got. And I met him same time as you, Jason, probably early 2000s when I started judging, before he became, quote, tasty, unquote.
Yeah.
And I was always uncomfortable calling him Tasty because I knew him when he was just Mike.
Yeah.
But he was always the same guy.
Right.
Whether it was, after 10 years of being on the BN or, 10 years beforehand, he was the same person he always was.
Yeah. Exactly. So I don't know. It's it's hard to express these sort of feelings, and it's hard to like I don't know. It's tough, but hopefully, like I said, we're in a holding pattern really. I think until we all sort of get together and talk about it. So that'll happen. I don't know. I think next week or something like that. So watch out for that. We'll definitely have a lot of guests on and a lot of BN hosts and stuff like that. So it should be a good way, not the best way to say goodbye, because saying goodbye is hard, but we can't get together and party. So this is the next best thing. So check it out. So anyway, Tasty, we're thinking about you, man, and we miss you. Okay, so Colin, you have this beer. It's a category 11A, and I'm not really sure what that is because I don't speak BJCP anymore.
He hasn't gotten up to 11 yet in the guidelines.
I only have 10 fingers, so I don't know, I don't know.
Well, Jason, it's an 11, so it's it's turned up all the way to 11, so it's a really big beer with a lot of flavor and alcohol.
Got it.
Right.
Got it.
Steered him in the right direction. I like it.
Yeah, for sure. Colin, what is this beer, man?
So it's Ordinary Bitters.
Ordinary Bitter. Oh, see, I love it. I'm already in love with it. I love that style. That's
English
my favorite.
beer.
Yeah, I love it. It's good stuff.
British beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Before we break into that, let's just go ahead and take our first break, and then we'll come back and we'll get into this beer. We'll talk to you, Colin, a little bit, and we'll get to the slaughter that is the judging from Brian and Brian. So hang on, everybody. This is Dr. Homebrew. We'll be right back.
Now serving patient number 189. Number 189 at the counter, please.
Now back to Dr. Homebrew.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Dr. Homebrew. We are here. I'm about to crack open Colin's 11A, which is Ordinary Bitter. But before that, of course, I want to remind you the way that Brian reminded me, 5-Star Chemicals. 5-Star Chemicals, the main sponsor of this show. They love us. They've loved us since the beginning. We really appreciate this. And actually, I just got another shipment of 5-Star from more beer, and it's something I'll talk about that on another episode, but I think I'm getting back into homebrewing.
No.
Yes, we're going to talk about it on the next show. It's a teaser. But
Damn,
yeah,
son.
I know. I got a whole thing going on. It's a whole thing. But and I know that if I want to clean my equipment the right way, I have to use 5-Star Chemicals. So I got a big jar of PBW again, because like I said, I use that for everything, non-homebrewing. Even when I wasn't homebrewing, I'm using PBW. But now that I'm homebrewing again, sort of, we're off to the races. So thank you very much to 5-Star Chemicals for supporting the show. You can go to 5starchemicals.com. Anywhere that you have access to the internet. That's how that works. That's how .coms and all these websites are. It's really confusing, I know. But anywhere you have access to the internet, you can find 5starchemicals.com. Anywhere you buy your cleaning equipment, your sanitizing equipment, or any of your home brewing stuff, if they don't have 5-Star, they don't know what they're doing. And I'm just going to say that right now. Unless one of the shows contacts me, and then I'll back down because I'm a coward, essentially. Yeah. Anyway, so thank you to 5-Star very much. All right, Colin, Ordinary Bitter, man. Have you made this style before?
I have. So this is kind of my base recipe that I made a little tweak because I'm never satisfied with the recipe. So
yeah, same, dude.
See how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. And how long have you been homebrewing?
6 years-ish.
Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty good haul, man. That's not bad. Yeah. You're feeling comfortable? Yeah. All right. Well, it smells great. All right. Let's go. Brian Shar.
Ooh.
Let's start with Shar for a second. See if we can move him back from volunteer at the front desk.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the promotion back to Doctor of Homebrew here. So, Colin, what are you in a homebrew club?
I am the Greenville Brew Stooges.
The Brew Stooges, like the
Brew
Three Stooges?
Stooges. Yes.
Love it.
Greenville, South Carolina?
It is, yep.
Wow. How did you arrive at that name of the Brew Stooges?
That was the name of the club when I joined it. I have no idea.
Wow, you don't even have the provenance of your homebrew club. I'm ashamed.
I know.
That's hilarious. But no, I like this beer. And this is a fun style, and it's one that even I went to London a few years ago, and maybe other parts of the UK it's different, but it's gotten even, let's say 3-4 years back, everybody wants to brew American West Coast IPA in the UK, and it was harder to find a style like an Ordinary Bitter, even in England. And if you've ever have you seen the original Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy from the BBC? I saw that when I was like 15, and he has to drink like 12 pints of bitters to survive getting teleported up. And when I was 15, I had no freaking clue what bitters were. Yeah. And I was very excited to find out that was this. So that was cool. So first thing,
Nerd.
I almost never talk about the label. bottle inspection.
Yeah.
Bottle inspection, take the label off. I recognize you're probably in a hurry or something, and that doesn't affect the quality of the beer at all. I like this beer, but in competition, what'll happen if you refill a bottle that you haven't taken the labels off of? It tends to give the judge. It can tend to give the judge a wrong impression about the beer inside. It'll set the stage for them to be disappointed and to expect to be disappointed rather than expect to be impressed. Does that make sense at all?
That's what happens to me. I say it all the time on the show. Every time I see a beer with a label on it, I think contamination already. And I've been let down, so to speak. I've been proven wrong maybe twice.
Yeah.
But
you don't want to start off in competition digging yourself out of a hole. You want to give yourself every advantage, especially for a well-made beer like this. So just something to think about.
You also definitely want to avoid getting disqualified in the competition.
There's that. I mean,
or such,
I've never seen, that's an interesting topic. I've never seen someone get DQ'd for like funky caps or labels or something, but it is a possibility. And if you're someone that drinks like cases and cases of some beer that no one else in your club or the area drinks, and you package it in that, that can be, you run the risk of getting DQ'd. It's a possibility. All right, so aroma. This had sort of a low aroma overall, which is what you expect from an ordinary bitter. Low malt aroma, no hop aroma. Got a very low fruitiness from the fermentation, almost certainly. I eat little bit of a low caramel note to it. I did pull this out of the fridge and let it sit for 90 plus minutes before I judged it. And this one that I'm drinking now is from the second bottle. And it's probably, a couple of hours out of the fridge. So it's warmed up pretty well. It's not fridge temperature, which will kill the perception of anything from flavor or aroma for a beer this delicate. But there is good stuff here. Gave it 8 out of 12 for aroma. Appearance, it's crystal clear. Probably hard to tell on this webcam, but it's crystal clear, light amber in color. Very low but persistent head, 3 out of 3 for appearance. Flavor, initially the flavor is sort of a low, I get lightly bready, lightly caramel malt, and sort of a medium earthy hop flavor, which also could be a fermentation character. But I get kind of a northern brewer kind of woody, earthy hop out of this. Very slight cardboard oxidation, potentially, but it is very slight, and it's entirely possible I imagined it. It's not like a really badly handled sample where you're licking a sheet of cardboard or chewing on some paper.
Right.
It's just a very low background note to me. Bitterness rises up to tilt balance slightly toward bitterness in mid-palate, which then takes you into a long finish, which is pretty balanced. It's very well attenuated. I didn't really get any fruitiness in the flavor until the finish, which was nice. I thought about this beer a lot, and I wrote this score sheet, and then I went back and I had some more, and I wrote some more.
Then you went to a coffee shop and you meditated.
And then I drank a bunch of mezcal to make sure I blew out my palate on smokiness and liquor.
I wrote a song about it. I dated this beer for a while, but it didn't work out.
And I think that I thought about the malt character a lot, and it's maybe a little too tilted toward the crystal / raisin / caramel side, maybe just a little bit more than as ideal for style. It should be probably a little more bready, toasty than caramel / crystal. And to me, that balance of malt was tilted a little more toward the caramel, raisin, crystal side. But there's no off flavors. Technically very well made. 13 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel, 5 out of 5. Low carbonation. If you're in the UK, this is essentially almost flat. And this is what this was. There is low carbonation, but that's low carbonation, and that's what it's supposed to be.
That's right.
Light body, no warming, creamy, no astringency. Overall impression, I gave it 7 out of 10 for an overall score of 36. I really like this style a lot, and it was great to have a chance to drink this. And thank you for sharing it. There's no off flavors except maybe that very slight oxidation. Next time, I'd maybe, if you're mashing this, I would try to maybe adjust your mash balance a little bit, maybe a little bit more toward the British pale malt / Maris Otter, and a little bit less caramel / crystal if you used that malt. Later on, after Brian judges this, I'm really curious to hear if you mashed and what your grain bill was. But like I said, 36 out of 50, that's a very good beer. And I appreciate getting the chance to drink this. And I'll be finishing this while Brian's reading his score sheet.
Hell yeah. All right, Cooper.
Okay.
Koopa Loop.
Yay. All right. Ordinary bitter. Yeah, this is one. I don't know if we've ever gotten an ordinary bitter. And, they also don't, it's not a beer that's known to travel super well. It's like a drink it locally beer.
Yeah.
And it's nice to.
On site kind
nice
of thing.
to get one of these on the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sent across the country. But the bottle the first bottle I judged, I didn't check the second one, had a very, very high fill, and I wondered if that was intentional. It was like millimeters from the cap.
Nope.
So, yeah, okay. That's okay. I was like, is he super worried about oxygen? And
it doesn't foam up much because it's low carb, so maybe a little bit of.
Right. You cap on that 3 millimeters of foam.
Yeah.
All good. It didn't. I don't think it damaged it at all or anything or caused any problems. But yeah, in the aroma, and so we got specific instructions to judge this at 50 degrees or so. So I was in a rush and I grabbed the bottle and ran it under some warm water in the kitchen, and I poured it into my glass, and it was like 65 or something. So then I got an ice bath going, and I chilled it down. This time tonight, I just grabbed the second bottle and set it out on my counter for half an hour or so, and it was like a perfect, low 50s kind of temperature. So
nice.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for the instruction there, and the judges should be mindful of that. You got to judge the beers at the right temperature.
Yeah.
So usually when you're giving judging comments, is as the beer warmed, it did this. Now it's as the beer cooled down. So I'll have a little bit of weird comments in here because of that, probably. Anyway, the nose has a nice, low, lightly caramelly malt aroma with a bready and slightly biscuity character to it. It is moderately fruity with a kind of the characteristic English ale esters. I'm getting a medium low earthiness. I thought I got a little tiny touch of citrus in the hop too. There's no acetaldehyde or anything bad in here. It's a nice clean beer. The slight caramel. I can't even read my own.
Are you all right,
here.
Brian? Should we call someone for you?
It has some slight caramel. The esters fade a bit as it cools. That was the funny. That's what threw me for a loop. Like the esters come out as it warms. Now in this case, the esters faded a bit as it cools.
Brian, do you smell toast? Can you move your hands, or can you smile for us? Are you okay?
Who is the president?
Yeah.
That's the symptoms of a stroke. Like if you could smile. Okay, smile.
All right, good. Toast.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Were you really worried about me there?
No.
That was just comedy.
Brian was overcommitting to the bit.
Yeah.
That's my do. It's my thing. That's what I do.
That's right.
Thank you. It is brilliantly clear with a low whitish head that persisted pretty well for a beer that pours a fairly low head to start with. Nice little collar refiner and some larger bubbles around the edges that sticks around. The color's a nice medium amber, nice pretty beer. And it shouldn't have a big frothy head or anything. So I had to give it 3 out of 3 for appearance. Flavor wise, medium low bitterness, maybe even towards low, and it's slightly caramelly. The malt comes through kind of strongly with some breadiness and caramel, a little touch of biscuit. I thought maybe, the bitterness was a little too low to come up and balance that. It is a bitter. It shouldn't be like super bitingly bitter, but it should have a good crispness to it, or minerally kind of crispness to it to play off that malt and have it, go off your tongue and kind of make you ready for the next sip. But definitely balanced the malt. It's pleasantly fruity. There's no obvious alcohol. Of course, you wouldn't want it to be a big alcohol bomb.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem wordy either. Sometimes these beers, if they're a little too sweet or under attenuated, there's no carbonation there. It's just like flat wort, and it's not pleasant. But this is pretty well attenuated and a nice medium dry finish, so that part works. Hops again are kind of earthy, maybe a touch of floral, but low overall. I'm getting a slight graininess from the malts. It's not a super big style, so sometimes you get a little bit of that. So it's not a caramel bomb, and it's not. I didn't get plum or a raisin, whatever Brian was getting so much, but the malt does linger in the aftertaste, a little graininess as it dries off the tongue. Mouthfeel wise, it's medium light bodied beer. No warmth, obviously. Medium low to low carbon dioxide level there is okay for the style. It's there's a bit of a bite there. I don't think it's from the CO2. Might be something from the grains a little bit, but it's not super harsh. It's not. There's just the faintest hint of maybe a little astringency in the back or a grainy bite. Mm-hmm. And for a beer, there's not a lot to hide behind. That can come out a little bit sometimes, but it's really not bad at all. Maybe having a little grainy bite in a beer like this is probably okay, although it should be pretty smooth overall. But overall, it's a very nice drinking ordinary bitter. I thought it was appropriately light and clean and very easy drinking. It's just no faults here. I felt it could use a touch more bitterness for the best balance, and or some adjustment on the mineral side to get the hops to pop in the right way to play off that malt that's there. And then I think that caramel would kind of get in line and back off, and any raisininess that might be in there as well, any other kind of rich malt flavors. But yes, it is surprisingly flavorful for such a light style. And I thought it had a really nice aroma, and I do kind of agree with Brian on the malt being kind of bold, and maybe also twisting it somehow towards a more strongly British character somehow would help that too. Just not have it be kind of a two-trick pony, just a little toasty and caramelly thing going on, but just kind of more just the Maris Otter richness and get a nice floor malted. You probably used a good, really nice base malt, but a floor malted Maris Otter that from a really good craft malts maltings that you trust will do wonders. Like the malt just drives the beer, and the minerals in the water play off the hops that are there. It's just enough to bring that bitterness up. But you know what? I landed at a 37 on this. I thought it's a very good beer, high end and very good. And I think we agreed pretty well on it. But we would love to hear what the recipe is and what you do with your water and et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
So you guys definitely nailed it. The change I made is I used Golden Promise instead of Maris Otter. To kind of see the difference. So you guys nailed it. That's fun. Yeah, I love that malt too. But for a bit ordinary bitter,
that's fun,
an
Brian.
Choice.
So it definitely lost its, I don't know, biscuity, kind of more rich malty, and the caramel malts kind of came out more so.
Yeah, it's so well crafted with the right malt. You'd drift right up into the 40s with this because it was really pleasant. I wanted to score it a little higher, honestly, but yeah.
The last version of the recipe, I got a 42, I think, at a competition. So right there.
Good for you. Yeah.
But,
what about the water? The water.
So it is
the Wawa.
25 sodium, 200 sulfate, 50 chloride.
Okay. Do you build that, or is that your water that comes out of the tap?
I build it. So Greenville has ridiculously soft water. I mean, it's basically RO water out of the tap. So we have pretty base water we can mess with. Chloramines you kind of got to worry about, but other than that, we have great base water to do whatever you want with it.
So you have spring water there, or
it comes up from the mountains somewhere. I'm not sure, but
okay. So spring water and snow melt and stuff like that. To the extent you get snow in the Appalachians.
Well, yeah, it's not. Our mountains aren't that big here. So.
Brian's really getting into the weeds on where you are. He wants to know your address. He really needs to know precisely where you are. What's your longitude and latitude?
Well, going back to the recipe, mash pH ended up being about 5.3, which is a little lower than I like to run. About 5.4, 5.5 usually is where I'm at. So that could have affected a little bit too. But as far as grain bill, it was 90% Golden Promise, so 7 pounds of that. And then Crystal 80 at 3% or a quarter pound. Special Roast at 1.6% or 0.125 pounds. Crystal 120 at 3.2% or 0.25 pounds, and then aromatic malt at 0.125 or 1.6%. So lots of small additions of several different things. I kind of started with Jamil's recipe and kind of tweaked it over time. So.
Yeah, you got to change his recipes. His recipes are awful. They're like the Geo Metro of cars, right? It's just like, they're fine. But what really could improve this is a spoiler on the back, right? That's what.
Yeah, you want to chop that roof off and make it a convertible.
See,
with
Brian knows
trash bags or something. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I wonder if you talked about that kind of bite to it. I wonder if that's the Special Roast, because I get a very sourdough bread kind of flavor out of that.
Yeah, I would think that's also sort of what's leaning people to, and I get it too. It's almost like oxidation, but it's not really oxidation. It's like there is that bitey, almost like a rye bread thing happening. That's sort of obtuse, sort of pokes you, as Doc would say. So maybe it's too much of that.
Yeah. I've kind of walked back my perception of oxidation with this, and I totally agree with JP that I think that's why I was kind of I was hedging my description of oxidation, like I don't know if there's really anything, if that's really there or not, and I think it was that malt, like JP was saying.
Yeah. Maybe back that off and go a little more like Victory or something else in there if you want to play with something fun. Just light amounts. I don't know. You use the 120 in there a lot. You use that dark crystal.
It's like
get your color
3%. So I like mixing crystals. So there's crystal 120 and 80 at equal amounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think in my opinion, I don't think any of those smaller additions are out of line. And that 120 is going to give you start to get a little bit on the border of like a raisin fruity character, which matches well with the fruitiness of like a British yeast. But like we were saying earlier, I think using a Maris Otter or other British pale ale malt in place of that Golden Promise is really the only recipe issue I think that would need to get corrected. I mean, Brian, do you think that even those small percentages of those specialty malts is too much? I mean, a little aromatic goes a long way, but he's only got like 1% of aromatic.
Yeah, I don't think that's hurting it. I would back off the 120 a little bit. You were getting some raisin. Yeah. After you mentioned it, I was getting a little bit of that too, but not too much, just a touch. But it's, maybe stay more with the 80, 90 crystal and just.
Why not 40, 50? I mean, is this beer traditionally sort of heavier on the crystal malts?
Yeah, I would think you would want to use lighter in general.
Yeah, maybe if you back off the 120 to a similar percentage as the aromatic malt, if you still want to use it, because this beer is so light in body. I mean, the OG is what, like 10.4? What was your OG?
OG is 36.
Yeah, I mean that's such a low OG. And what was your final gravity? Did you say
9.
9? Yeah, that's great. But there's not. It's the point of this is that it's very light bodied. It's very low in alcohol, and there's not a lot of big flavors for the specialty malts to have to overcome to be perceived. So those bigger, like 120 and aromatic, I think you're talking about 1% or something that makes a contribution, and it makes a noticeable contribution.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could experiment with, if you want a malt just for color, go get a little bit of just something brown, like a really soft, like a light chocolate, just a tiny percent, just to give it the color or something. You don't want anything roasty in there or anything like that, or just a little bit of. I mean, you could try something dehusked that doesn't have too much bitterness in it. See if you want to just get the color out of it, but then you're not getting, I don't know. It might be treading on dangerous territory there. You can put a little bit of brown malt or something fun, just to I don't know. But
something fun.
If it's all caramel, it gets kind of maybe one dimensional. But
you just want something fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys want the hop bill?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
So at 60 minutes, I did 0.65 ounces of Fuggle and East Kent Golding. And then at 20 minutes, I did half an ounce of East Kent and then 0.4 ounces of Fuggle. And then, let's say, at 5 minutes, half an ounce of East Kent and 0.4 of Fuggle.
Okay.
So IBUs was like 32.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Stayed traditional there.
Yep.
Fair amount of hops, though. Yeah. Not bad.
I totally missed my guess of Northern Brewer, but that's okay.
Fuggle, it's in the ballpark.
Yeah, they're kind of similar in some ways.
And then I did Y East 1968, the London ESB, pitched at 66, and then raised to 68 once the Krausen hit.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I underpitch a little bit just to kind of bump the esters a bit.
Yeah, had some nice esters in it for sure.
Yeah, it's well attenuated. Fermentation is clearly good fermentation. Your yeast were happy and healthy. Yet from a technical standpoint, there's really nothing I would recommend in this beer. I mean, it was a recipe issue with the your base malt, and that's maybe a little bit of tweaking your specialty malt. And this will usually be, well over 40.
What I get for experimenting. So.
How do you know?
This
if you
way
don't
you know
experiment?
exactly. I mean, like that's just sort of what it is with brewing. Like, I got it. You have an itch in your brain where you're like, I got it. I wonder if this will work, and you're never going to know unless
you're allowed to experiment. In 2020, the year that is basically a dumpster fire, you should experiment and just have some fun. Do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
You guys talked about bitterness balance. I mean, do you think that's more just because there's not enough of the breadiness, or do you think the IBUs are a little too low?
It had quite a lot of hops in there. It ended at the top end of the calculations anyway. You said 30 something. That's up at the top end for style. Yeah, okay. It goes up 35. Well, that's kind of in the middle. So yeah.
I thought your bitterness was just fine.
I thought it was more like maybe using a little more kind of Burtonization to the water, just a little more edge to it, so it pops and kind of gets a little crisper bite to it.
I've never had like a real version of this style, but I would think you wouldn't want a pop of bitterness.
Not huge, not huge. Just a little more to balance, and it could be because all the specialty malts that are in there. It's flavorful for how light it is, and that's part of what makes it really enjoyable. So, I can drink a lot of this. It's a twist on the style, but it's very drinkable and fun.
Yeah, definitely.
That's kind of you could drink a lot of it and be totally fine. That was kind of the purpose to kind of get it going.
Yep.
All right. Do you have any questions for the guys, Colin?
I think you guys nailed it. I definitely will go back to the Maris Otter and kind of go from there. But Golden Promise is fun to play with.
Yeah, English crystal malts. Don't just you gotta stick with that. That's what I was saying. 40, like the 40-50 L crystal malts. I think that's more where you want to be, where it's a little more sweetness, a little less roast, caramel, raisin kind of thing. Right.
You could blend that Golden Promise with some Maris Otter to make like an English IPA or something like that. Have some fun with other styles, but maybe not for the ordinary. You just in the ordinaries and all the bitters, you just expect those traditional British malts like flavors. Right. Like this, if you get an ordinary bitter from Draft, it's like a real British keg. It's just so much that that malt with that little bitterness pop in it. Yeah, beautiful.
Landlord Taylor is my favorite one that I've ever found in the U.S., and they say they use Golden Promise, which is why I wanted to try it out.
Okay.
So maybe it is your Golden Promise is fine, but it's that Crystal 120 and shit that's throwing it.
Mm.
So but whatever you do, change one thing and do it again.
Yes. Yeah.
That, Absolutely. You've been doing this for you're a 6-year-old, basically. You've been doing this for a while. You know that.
And please send us, if you rebrew this, please send that to us. I would love to taste that.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, Colin, we'll let you split, and then we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to speak with Brian. Another show with 3 Brians.
Yes. Oh, I love these shows.
Well,
Council O'Brien's all over again.
Yeah. It shouldn't be this way.
I was thinking we need to give Brian Shar a new nickname, and I was thinking BS.
Oh, I mean, come on. That's so unoriginal. It's been done to death.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but you know what? The classics, baby. All right? That's why a 57 Chevy is still king, or I don't know, whatever cool people say.
That's a good point.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Hang on a sec. This is Dr. Homebrew. We'll be right back.
Hello, fellow BNers. This is Sully from the 21st Amendment Brewery located in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park. Before Nico and I opened the 21A and before I was a professional brewer, I homebrewed on my small 4-burner apartment stove in a back house in Santa Monica, California, making my extract brews before graduating to the daunting idea of all-grain brewing. Homebrew books and information was hard to come by back then. The internet hadn't been invented yet, along with other things we take for granted today, like electricity and potable water. One thing I wish I had back then when I was learning was a radio show that could teach me the ins and outs of brewing and answer questions that I had about homebrewing, a resource for making great craft beer. The 21st Amendment Brewery is excited to be a proud sponsor of Dr. Homebrew, a great show that teaches you what you need to know about making incredible beer. Good stuff. Listen up, you might learn something. I certainly did. And thanks for your support. Tasty Crack Kings.
Back to the examination.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Dr. Homebrew. We say goodbye to Colin, and we welcome another Brian. Brian, welcome to the show.
You can never have enough Brians.
Well, I don't know.
And he spells it the right way.
We're about to test that
That's
theory.
right.
If we have if we can have too many Brians. Whereabouts are you at, Brian? Geographically speaking, not
I'm
mentally.
basically north of Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay, perfect. Are you guys? Isn't there like some big weather system moving in? Or is that North Carolina? That's North Carolina. I don't know my geography too well.
Yeah, it's been pretty dreary all day.
Okay.
Rainy, cold.
See, I wasn't that bad. It wasn't that stupid of a question, Brian Cooper.
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of, but it wasn't really that.
Where's Hurricane Zeta in relation to you? It's moving pretty fast, but maybe not that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tennessee's not really near any coast, so I'm thankful of that.
You're good. Yeah, you're all right then, I guess.
Yep.
All right, and what beer did you send the boys today?
This is a smoked porter. So the base style is a Baltic porter with some smoked malt.
Awesome. And now Cooper had a bottle of this for me, but I couldn't get out to his place. So, and I'm actually really disappointed because I love smoked beers. I don't care what they are. I will always try smoked beers. And I think more people should be making them. I think more people should be buying them. If more people bought them, then more homebrewers would make them. That's my clear delineation. But anyway, Brian, have you made this before, Brian? Sorry.
Yeah, this is actually like the third iteration on the beer that I've made. So did some changes this time around. So hopefully it's changes for the better.
Nice. Excellent. All right.
And I can talk about that if y'all want some history, or we can just go on and talk about the beer.
Well, let's talk about the beer, and then when we hit your recipe up at the end of it, then maybe we can do the previous iterations of that.
Sounds cool.
Okay. All right, Cooper, you're up, my friend.
All right. Here we go. Yeah, the nose on this is nice. Had a good feel. It was the one I opened was slightly low, but comes through with a nice. The smokiness comes through first. I would say it's just slightly ashy. It's like a distant campfire kind of, but alongside that, you get a low, mildly kind of roasty and chocolatey, with a little kind of dark coffee malt element. There's a lot going on here. It's nice. There's a little bit of sharpness to it. It's between the malt and the smoke. There's a lot of darkness and smokiness kind of coming through together. But it's the esters are low and kind of out of the way. Maybe a little bit kind of cherry-like. No DMS or diacetyl. I'm also getting a little bit of nuttiness in there underneath the darker elements. There's no real hops here at all. I would say though, it definitely, even despite the smoke and trying to get at the underlying base style, it seems like it stops short of burnt as the style should. But the smokiness is kind of smooth and wispy in there. It's not a smoke monster, which is nice. My son's watching a lot of Scooby-Doo. There probably is a smoke monster on that show.
Replaced probably with like every fourth episode.
Every fourth episode. Oh no, the smoke monster.
One for you darn kids.
Those meddling kids and their dog.
And their homebrew judging.
Yeah, okay. Color-wise, it's a nice rich brownish black color. Seems clear at the corners of the glass. Actually, you can see right through it if you really try it. The clarity is really nice on this beer. Has a head of a fine frothy bubbles. It has kind of a cappuccino-like appearance, honestly, and the head persists really well on the top here. So it's really creamy and thick. So that's a nice element there. Flavor-wise, 3 out of 3 for appearance here. Flavor-wise, bold, richly chocolatey malt with some nutty undertones. And I thought it was going to be smokier than it was from the nose, because there's a fair amount of smoke in the nose, not harsh smoke, but in the flavor, the malt kind of wins out first, and you get the base style and some nice chocolatey smooth malt with some little nuttiness underneath there, and then the smokiness comes through, but it's not biting or harsh in any way. It's really smooth. And the fermentation is absolutely clean. The beer has a slightly sweet impression to it, as the Baltic Porter style should. You declared a Baltic Porter as the base on this, which is interesting. Right. To get a smoked Baltic Porter. That's a really cool combination. The finish, I would say, is kind of just semi-sweet. Like in the flavor, it has a little more of an impression of sweetness when you're tasting all the malts that are in here. And then it finishes kind of semi-sweet, but it dries off a little bit at the end, but it lingers with a little sweetness with that malt, which is nice. I would say it's just a good balance between the malt and the smoke. Neither one's really dominating, but the malt wins a little bit in the flavor balance-wise, which I kind of like that. The bitterness generally is fairly low, other than just a little bit of bitterness from the darkest malts. And then behind all that, I do get a kind of a little a dried fruit character, which has maybe a little kind of a leatheriness to it from the smoke in a way. It's just like a interesting dried fruit underneath there, as sometimes you can have in those Baltics.
Sure.
And it seems like there's a little bit of alcohol here. It's not. It doesn't seem extremely monstrous by any stretch of the imagination. It's not like, God, this is nail polish remover. It's really smooth alcohol in there. It's nice and clean and well brewed. So mouthfeel wise, medium full bodied, and carbonation, it's hard to say. It's kind of medium to medium low kind of territory. Has a modest warmth to it, but it's really smooth, not biting or harsh. Somewhat clean, somewhat creamy. I mean, with no astringency noted really at all there. It's just overall just really smooth on the tongue. So, I like this beer quite a lot. I guess in a way, like to me, the nose had a little more biting quality than the flavor. And if you had a way to kind of smooth out the aroma even a little bit more, and that, we can talk about the smoked malts that you used in the beer. There's something in the smoky element that's a little sharp in the nose, but once you get to the flavor, it kind of melts away and it blends really nicely with the beer. I'm not sure what to tell you there, but we can talk about what you used in the recipe. But otherwise, you did when you do a smoked beer and you it's a pretty bold style to start with. The smoke needs to stand up to it, but yet not overpower the base style, and both are coming through really nicely. So I landed at a 41 on this beer. It's an excellent beer.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. All right, Shar, excuse me. Wow.
All right.
Too many Brians.
Yeah,
there's never too many Brians. Jason, can you change your name to Brian?
I could, but I don't.
At least for the show.
I don't want to be offended.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, Brian, I saw on the label, which you say with your bottles, which, by the way, Dr. Homebrew entrants, please provide labels for your bottles, kind of like if you were sending them to competition. It does make it real easy. I saw that you were in the Music City Brewers.
Yeah, that's the club here in Nashville. So, good bunch of guys.
Excellent. How long have you been a member?
Let's see. I've been brewing for about 10 years. I think I've been in the club maybe about 6 or 7 of those years.
Awesome. No, that's great.
Yeah.
I when I was a little kid, I spent about 7 years in and around Jackson, which is probably about an hour and a half southwest of you guys. So
yeah,
I've been to Opryland and done the Nashville thing in like the 70s, but haven't been back since. Hopefully, when NHC or something comes back there, when I get back. Anyway,
I was really sad that they canceled HomebrewCon this year. I was like, man, I can finally go because it's in my backyard. But
I think they're going to make up for it at some point. They need to. I was super excited about that too.
Yeah, I hope so. I'd love to go. My partner and I want to go to Dollywood while we're out there. She's super into Dolly Parton, and that's not too far, so we could kind of make a vacation out of it.
Dollywood is awesome. You should go.
Excellent.
Beautiful area.
So I like Brian. I really like this beer a lot. I also gave this a really good score. This is I echo a lot of what Brian had said, so I'll just kind of march through my score sheet here. Aroma was medium smoky, pleasant but not overwhelming. That's one of the hard things about these. You go smoky, people tend to want to go hard, like with any specialty beer, and you can't go hard with a smoky beer. You can't overwhelm everything else. In 32A, the key thing is balance, and that's one thing I think this beer did really well. The smoke is kind of in the nature of a summer sausage, and I mean that in a good way. Like if you've had the Schlenkerlaw Märzen, the Schlenkerlaw beers from like Bamberg, the classic Rauch beer, they have kind of a summer sausage character to them, but in a pleasant, good way, as opposed to peat or other types of smoke you can have. So I mean that as a good descriptor to kind of describe like what kind of smokiness this is. Because like malts are smoked under different woods will have different flavors to them. You can tell, for example, a cherry wood smoked malt, different types of malt. Anyway, I'm getting too deep in the weeds there. Low, medium, dark malt, I get kind of a plummy chocolate character to it. Brian talked about like a dried fruit. And I get kind of that dried fruit, plummy, even almost a little bit of a peach possibly character out of that. And that the fruitiness kind of comes out after your nasal palate adjusts. It's a phrase that I heard a long time ago, and I do like to use from time to time because it takes a little time with a smoked beer, not just for your tongue, but for your nose to kind of get used to acknowledge the smoke, get used to it, and then be able to perceive other aromas and flavors other than just the smoke. Sure. But I really liked it. It was complex and very well balanced. I gave that 10 out of 12. Appearance, 3 out of 3. It's very clear to the extent you can tell with a really dark beer. Dark brown in color, head is low and persistent. So that's great. Initially, the flavor is smoked malt. Again, kind of that summer sausage in a good way flavor call it a medium level. In mid-palate, the hot bitterness comes up to balance that malt and that smokiness. The dark malt, that chocolate and plum character come out more kind of mid-palate and afterwards as well. I think after my mouth kind of got adjusted to the smokiness, some of that dark malt came out. It's really a wonderful smoked malt and dark malt balance into a very long finish where the bitterness still is present to balance both of those things. It's well attenuated, which is a good achievement for a Baltic Porter. I love this style. I've brewed it several times. It's great, but attenuation and getting it to ferment out all the way can occasionally be a challenge. So it's really well attenuated. Good job on that. I gave it 17 out of 20 for flavor.
Thank you.
Mouthfeel, 5 out of 5. Body is, I'd go almost full, like high medium to full, but it's, I think, an appropriate level. And I like where that is body-wise. It's not so thick and heavy that you're struggling to finish a sample of this. Medium carbonation. It's warming, but not excessively so. I don't get either like heavy warming or like an ethanol character to the flavor. So I'll be curious what the final gravity and what your alcohol is on this. It's creamy and smooth, no astringency, again, 5 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression, 9 out of 10 for a total of 44 out of 50. I really love like I'm just saying, the attenuation of this really high gravity beer, and B, the balance of the smoked malt with the base beer. That balance is just so elusive and so hard to get. You said you've brewed this a few times, and I am curious about your history of this. Because clearly you've learned a lot each time and gotten that balance dialed in to right where it needs to be. The smoke flavor also, I think, contributes to a perception of dryness, which helps to the extent that maybe it's not as well attenuated as I think, but I think it is pretty well attenuated. That smokiness will kind of help. There's a synergy with the beer that will help it be perceived as maybe being drier than perhaps it actually is, which is a positive for drinkability. But really, really well done. I hesitate to even state what I would change in this, but get a 44 out of 50, and love to hear about your recipe and fermentation and everything else.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. So this is a fun beer I've done several times, like I said, and where to start? So it's kind of a long story maybe, but quite a few years ago I tried the Alaskan Smoked Porter and really loved that beer from Alaskan Brewing.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago we ended up taking a trip out to Alaska, my wife and some friends, and the Alaskan Brewing Company was hosting this homebrew competition that they advertised, and they said, well, here's what we'll do. We'll send you some sort of mystery ingredient, and everybody brews their own beer, and we'll see who does the best job. So that first year, they sent out some spruce tips, which I'd never seen or tasted or brewed before. And that was interesting. I didn't win, and not too sure I was crazy about the beer. But the next year, they sent out an email and said, whoever wants to participate can. And that year it was smoked malt. So they sent me a pound of alderwood smoked malt, which I think is what they use in the Alaskan smoked porter, and use that to smoke salmon and all sorts of cool stuff. So I made a smoked porter. I guess that wasn't too original since that's their mainstay beer, but whatever. I thought the beer turned out really well, and I got a couple of medals and sent it to nationals, and actually finished with second place in the first round. So got really excited about that. But then when I went to brew it again, I couldn't find any alder smoked malt. So I think that's something very unique to being in Alaska and the Alaskan Brewing Company. So I had to do with cherry wood and beechwood for my smoked malts.
Okay.
So I did those half and half. And that was actually using a robust porter recipe that was in the Brewing Classic Styles. And I think robust porter is something that kind of went away in the newer BJCP style guidelines. So for the version that I sent you guys, I switched to the Baltic porter recipe. And again, kind of used the Brewing Classic Styles and ended up with, again, half cherry smoked and half beechwood smoked.
That's interesting, because usually I can pick out the cherry smoked pretty well, but I think, and I totally missed it in this, but it really, the combination of that with the dark malt is maybe just so harmonious.
Yeah, I really wish I could get my hands on some alder smoked malt. So I may have to do that on my grill. I know some guys that do their own smoked malt, and I can get some alder wood and just roll my own. That's probably what I'll try for the next iteration.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
no, that's really great. So,
why not?
what was your recipe for this beer?
So let's see. I had 43% was Munich malt, and then 27% Pilsner. The smoked malt was 21%, which ended up being about 4 pounds in this recipe. And then 8 ounces of Crystal 60, 8 ounces of Special B, 6 ounces of Carafa 2, and 4 ounces of chocolate. And then I used Kent Goldings and Willamette for the hops, both for aroma and bittering.
And how many gallons?
This was a 5-gallon recipe.
Okay. What was your original gravity?
It was 1082.
Okay.
And final gravity was 1021, so it's 8.2% alcohol.
Jesus. Cool. I think I'm drunk just hearing that.
No, when I've made Baltic Porter, that tends to be more like 10 or 11. But 8% is a little more drinkable. And it's not quite as potentially harsh, and not as harsh on your friends who maybe aren't expecting to be drinking a 10% beer.
Sure. Like me.
Yeah. Well, it's the style is 6.5 to 9.5. So, it's 8's kind of right in the middle almost.
Right.
It's pretty good. And I like that. I think that if it was the 9.5, it would be the alcohol would start fighting with the smoke a little bit more.
No, I totally agree. I think alcohol, like ethanol, like harsh ethanol and smoke are a bad combination.
And I'll add, too, that the beer that I sent you is about 10 months old at this point.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
What did you use the lager yeast, or did you use an ale yeast for this?
Yeah, it was German Bach 833 from White Labs, and fermented at 52 degrees.
Yeah, I've usually used that one for Baltic Porter myself, and really can't replicate. For a Baltic Porter, it really needs to be a lager yeast, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this is the first time doing the Baltic Porter, so I appreciate all the feedback.
No, really, really well done, man. This is an amazing beer.
Sounds
and it's held up really well for being almost a year old,
right?
And for getting shipped across the country too,
right? Do you have any specific questions for them, Brian, or just kind of they hit everything and you were just looking for feedback?
Yeah, just basically looking for feedback. Okay. I actually brewed this for nationals and actually sent it off, and of course, then found out that they all got turned into sanitizer or whatever. So, always anxious to get feedback from seasoned judges. So, thank you.
Yeah, we're glad we could help. We might have, seen you up at that stage in Nashville if it had been on. That's a special bummer. But keep brewing it, and hopefully San Diego's on next year, and we'll go from there. But wow, that's really
awesome.
Cool. Very, very well done beer. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, Brian.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks, man. I look forward to drinking my bottle. All right, Brian.
I sent an extra one out for you, so hopefully you get to try it.
Cooper has it for me.
On that.
Yeah, don't drink
I'm
it.
I'm going to save it for him.
Please do. Please do. All right, Brian, thanks a lot, man. We'll let you go.
All right, cheers.
All right, thanks, dude.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Well, it sounds like some good beers, man. It sounds like a good... I really do want to try that one. I think
you'll enjoy it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'll take good care of it. It's right here in my fridge. I won't crack it open late night.
Good. I appreciate that. All right, well, we're going to take off, everybody. If you're listening live on Facebook, we're going to end the stream for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to come back on with a brand new one. And this is very exciting stuff. Never before happened on the Brewing Network in its entirety. And then, of course, if you're listening to the podcast, just flip to the next button and or the next show or whatever I'm talking about, and you'll get to hear all about me learning how to homebrew all over again. It's going to be a lot of fun, I'm sure. So anyway, thanks a lot for tuning in, everybody. If you want more content, of course, there's all sorts of Brewing Network shows. There's all sorts of Dr. Homebrew shows. We're backed up on Brew Strong episodes. So there's going to be a tidal wave of content coming at you in about, a week or so. Probably 7. We have 7 things to release. We have even Dr. Homebrews from last month. So we sort of took a break when the whole tasty thing happened. And, just kind of, like I said in the beginning of the show, it didn't really feel right to do our normal shtick, considering our friend passed away. So, we have a lot of that stuff saved up. So if you're listening live, that's coming soon. If you're not listening live, you don't know about it. All right, everybody.
JP, I was just listening to one of those Brew Strongs that went up.
Yes,
about
Brian.
stuck fermentation, and I actually learned a lot of stuff.
Great. I'm so glad. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and until next time, we'll see you later.